Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our kickoff gathering number 2 for the Middle School Career Exploration Pilot Project, bringing YouScience to our middle schools to create opportunities for our youth. Really excited to have you here. I personally love a meeting, a conference, a professional development opportunity that fills my brain and my heart. So we're really hoping that that will happen for all of us here today. Our first gathering was a ton of fun. Looking forward to this one being equally, if not better, a gathering of wonderful people to help create this opportunity for our kids in our state. Want to acknowledge all the different folks that are with us today and involved in this pilot project. Specifically, Beth and I want to acknowledge and thank the pilot project coordinators from your regions, Brooke Rich from High Desert, Debbie Johnson from MWEC, Beth Molenkamp from PacTech, Gina Castro-Brandt from South Coast ESD, and Carla Clark from Southern Oregon ESD. And those fine folks are also really heavily engaged with co-coordinators and STEM Hub coordinators and folks at all levels in their school teams making this possible. So a huge thank you to you all for your work. It's just been a joy getting this off the ground and started with you. Would you quickly in the chat, if you wouldn't mind throwing in who you are? I may have called your name out already, but if you'd still add yourself into the chat, that way everybody that's with us has a chance to see who's here this morning. So nice to see all these folks popping in. Good morning to you all. If you could put down your name, the school, the district that you're from, the region that you might be in, and your role, that would be fantastic. And we thank you so very much for joining us. And while you're doing that, Beth is going to run through a couple of the nuts and bolts for today. And as we each come to a part of saying hello to the team, we'll introduce ourselves. And so I will start. I'm Jim Taylor, Oregon Department of Education. I work on the secondary, post-secondary transitions team. And I am a CTE education specialist working specifically in human services, human resources. And then the other big basket of work I do is career exploration and guidance related to CTE, and also focused on pre-kindergarten through grad school opportunities for career exploration. So combine all those together, and we end up meeting each other today. I'm going to pass it to Beth Wiggum, who's going to talk to us about the nuts and bolts of today's gathering.
Good morning, everyone. So yes, I'm Beth Wiggum. I work at the Oregon Department of Education. My position supports career and college readiness, as well as comprehensive school counseling programs. And so some of the nuts and bolts that we just wanted to cover for today is that, as Jim mentioned, we're going to be recording, and that will allow either people to review what was recorded, the information, or be able to, for those that missed it, be able to review what we've covered. So we've automatically muted everyone in order to limit the audio feedback. So please go ahead, familiarize yourself with the mute button, and feel free to unmute yourself at any point that when you want to speak. We'd also love to see your faces. So if you wouldn't mind, in order for you to see each other, please just make sure your webcam's turned on if you're able to. And feel free to adjust your name as a participant. I think sometimes it defaults to some other name on some people. So if you need to adjust it, feel free to go ahead and do that. And then if you need to take a break at any point for any reason, please just turn off your camera so that we can avoid some distractions. And then lastly, we're going to use Padlet today. Jim will go over that in a couple minutes, and we want to be able to capture your responses and questions and comments just on the different topics that we'll cover today. So we'll put the link in our chat pretty soon, but we want you to leave it open throughout the entire gathering just so that we can come back to it at different points. So that's it from me. I'm going to hand it back over to Jim.
Thank you. And today's presenters, really glad to have these folks with us today. Lauren won't be with us later in the morning, but we'll talk about some work that she's doing to help support. And again, we'll have these folks introduce themselves as they are sharing throughout the day. Thank you for joining us today. Our learning objectives for today is at the conclusion of our time together, we're hoping to understand our collective purpose and outcomes for the pilot project, and have some resources to discuss that later on. Identify ways to center equity and access through intentional conversation and action, including the use of data. And that to me is the highlight of today's gathering, where we get to have some conversation led by our partners around those issues. And then begin using the YouScience and Oregon Open Learning and Open Educational Resources platforms that we will use as hubs of resource for our work. Beth is going to discuss community agreements for today.
Yeah, so we just created some community agreements today to kind of help guide our conversations. So usually you'll see those as kind of like group norms, but because we're kind of giving them to you all today, what we're really hoping is that we'll all be able to ground in and speak from our own personal, local, and immediate life experiences. We know that you all bring a wealth of experience and knowledge to this topic and the work that we're doing. So we will hope that it will add perspective and some depth to our discussions. We also want to honor and hold space for each other. So take space, make space as you need it. We hope that we listen to each other and learn from each other through this gathering. Also, we acknowledge and hold space that there will maybe some discomfort in some of the topics that we cover, especially around student data, students, and interpretation of tests. And so some of the topics discussions may be a little bit difficult or challenging at times. So we just want to acknowledge that. And then last, just to practice self-care, look after yourself, whether that's emotionally, physically, or spiritually. And this will be throughout our time today. Take what you need as we learn together. And I'll pass back to Jim.
Thank you. So I'm going to introduce you to the Padlet. For those of you who have used it before, and can I get a thumbs up that you folks see it on your screen? Awesome. Thank you very much. If you've used it before and you've signed in before, when you open it, it should pop right into your sign in. If not, there's a sign in at the top right corner. If you could take the time to do that quickly, that will help basically put a name to the comments. If you don't have time to do that or don't want to create another sign in, completely understand. So as you enter comments, would you consider putting your initials? We've had some great commentary come in through this platform, and it's really helpful to go back and have a conversation with folks, get more information, or find out where some resources are available. So as an example, I'm going to open one up here. And so if I'm going to go put a post in, I'm going to hit the plus sign. And what would this pilot project look like, sound like, feel like? I'm going to say totally awesome as the title of my little post right here. And I'm going to then write into the next area, my thoughts as related to answering the question. Oh, now you get to watch my typing skills. And as soon as I click anywhere else on the screen, it will post that up for everyone to see. And at this point, Brooke may have an opinion about whether this is going to be totally awesome or not. So Brooke would click on the add a comment and be able to comment to my post. Regina may come back around and go, oh, you know what? Jim's comment was a 5-star and Brooke's was a 4-star. And so then we begin this little competition between each other on putting up commentary and also then doing some ranking of posts. And we'll come back to that later in the day this morning around this subject specifically to get some feedback from folks on where they want to put some of the highlights of the work. So hit the plus sign to put a post in, click anywhere else on the screen. We'll upload the post to the Padlet. If you hit enter, you just keep entering inside your post. So that won't enter the post onto the screen. You can add comments to folks' work, and you can also put a star there, giving a share. If you want to take something down, you can click on the 3 dots and delete your post or enter your post as you so desire. So if there's any questions about Padlet, I'll take 1 second and listen and look. So glad to see all these new folks on the screen. Welcome, welcome today. Thank you for joining us. And put into the chat, please, if you have just come in, your name, your school, the region, if you know the region that you're cooperating and working with in a consortium, and what your role is in this process. We'd be grateful for that. Beth, the vision.
Yeah, so what we want to do is together, we're going to create a vision of success for this pilot project. So you may not have all the information or pieces about the pilot project, or you may have been involved quite a bit in the development of the early stages of this pilot project. But what we want you to do is we want you to think about what you wish for students. So think for a moment, what would this pilot project, so our work together, what would it look like, sound like, feel like if every single student had the information, resources, support, and experiences that they needed to make informed decisions about their future? So think about that for a moment. What would it look like, sound like, feel like?
And can I check in with the team? Is anybody else unable to add a post? Carla can add a post? Okay. No, nobody can add? No one can
I'm
add. All
not
right.
able to for some reason.
Oh my goodness. Let me check this really quick. My apologies. Would you, let's see, gotta find it. Modify. Posting. Comments. Oh, it should be working. Why is it not working?
Could be operator error on my part.
No, if it's happening to multiple people, that's not good. No required approval. Attribution, everything is as it should be. Let me go. Would everyone recirculate and see if that fixed it by chance?
Would you put the link to the Padlet in the chat one more time, please?
You bet. Let me put this fresh one in. It was working last night. Okay, let's try that. Fresh Padlet link is in. Nope. All right.
What we could do is have them put their responses
In the chat. That would be fantastic.
And then we can load them in.
All right. And as Amy shares on YouScience, I will work to remedy that. My apologies, everybody.
Yeah, so sorry about that, everybody. We had worked it out last night, but for some reason it's not working at the moment. So what we're going to have you do is, so in the chat, our chat area, go ahead and write your response to that question that we've posed for what would success look like. So, and what we'll do is we'll capture those, and we really want you to be clear and specific as we start to kind of envision what this would look like. So go ahead and add those to the chat when you're ready.
Thank you all. As you're doing that, I'm going to put up the purposes and outcomes that were found in the application process generated by ODE and some thought partners. These are going to be available to you in a document. Beth will put that document link in the chat. I'm not going to read these to you. These were part of, I'm sure many people had conversations around this, especially at the coordinator level and team leader level at the schools. But what I would like to share with you are the outcomes that came to us inside of the application, which were really some highlights and kept appearing across multiple applications and kind of in an order as they appeared. These opportunities to create equity and support historically underserved and underrepresented student populations, and to braid funds or braid projects in your regions to strengthen the opportunities of both opportunities, or multiple opportunities in many cases, and the outcomes you're seeking. And the third bullet, continue to build these existing professional learning groups of local educators and statewide partners. So we're really looking to have kind of a network of change in terms of the career exploration opportunities that occur for middle schoolers, and linking that to their class choices as they move forward into high school transition. So these are available to you to have as conversation starters with your school teams, with your regional teams, to use that document that's shared with you, and it will also be in your resources folders with your coordinators moving forward. So these two can feed maybe some thought process around what that vision might look like as you're building that, and that will change, we hope, as the morning continues.
Jim, there's some great responses over in the chat. I'm just reading through.
Call some of those out.
Yeah, thank you guys. These are great. So some of them are students would have the informed ability to clearly define their career pathway and loosely understand how to move forward with a specific career goal. So students thinking in new and different ways, students feeling empowered, students dreaming, students feeling like they have a choice and are not stuck in one field, that there's options for them, electives that provide students with opportunities to sample various CTE strands, and that they have an idea about interests as they move into the high school. Students becoming aware of their aptitude and how it relates to their interest, and being excited to explore career education and career opportunities. These are great. Students have informed decisions about potential career. I think you guys can read the last few that are on here.
So we're going to pass to Amy to start off the YouScience portion of this morning. And as that's happening, Beth and I will work kind of behind the scenes to get the Padlet up and working. You have access to the questions on the Padlet, so let's adapt as we're moving along here. If something comes up for you and the Padlet's not functioning, please throw it into the chat, keep a side note, and we'll work on remedying this. But the columns that are continuing in the Padlet conversation are what are some things that are occurring that provide opportunity for career awareness exploration in your areas already existing? What are some gaps that, as you're thinking this morning, become aware of that relate to career awareness exploration? As we're thinking about incorporating this work and creating these opportunities, what are some intentional and innovative career awareness and exploration activities that could be developed? And so if you wanted to, if it ends up in the chat, we'll obviously be able to capture where that's coming from. And do you have questions for ODE or YouScience? And then as we're building our supports, we're looking for these frequently asked questions that will be strong points of support for folks, no matter where they're coming from, whether they're a student, a parent, an educator, counselor, coach, somebody in the building, an administrator, but then working also with our business and industry partners and community leaders and members. So please put any of those in the chat. We'll adapt, and again, we'll try to work behind the scenes and get this fixed as quickly as possible. Any questions before we pass to Amy? All right, I don't see any hands. Beth, do you see anything in the chat about questions right now?
Nope, none.
Okay, really happy to pass this over. I'm going to stop share, and I'm going to let Amy Bradley from YouScience jump on there and go into her introduction and her work.
Thank you so much, Jim. Let me swipe over. Can you guys give me a thumbs up that you can see my screen at this point? Okay, perfect. I'm going to change it to one more button. So let's see if that works. We'll not be able to see you guys as well, but Jim, Beth, can you guys still see my screen? I'll be able to hear you. Yes, okay, thank you guys. And thank you for giving me time to share with you today. Again, my name is Amy Bradley with YouScience, one of the regional directors. Love working with schools in Oregon, really happy to share and actually to be at this place at this point in time with you guys. One thing I want to mention is just how much we appreciate you guys, personally appreciate you guys. This year has been crazy, unprecedented. None of you signed up when you became an educator. None of you had any idea what, what you would face this year, and just how much we appreciate you guys as educators, all you're doing for our young people to keep their education moving. And we just really value and appreciate you guys. So, and appreciate you, you came out on a Saturday morning to spend time with us, and really am grateful for that as well. So I've been with YouScience for a little over 7 years, since before we had a product. I was joking with Jim and Beth, I do a lot off the cuff, but some of you guys are joining me, have heard a few times. So I'll stop definitely and answer questions as we go along. And hopefully you will gather just a little bit more in-depth information today about YouScience. We will be doing specific implementation training webinars, and we've got videos. So we have a lot of support. So just know that walking into what I'm sharing in the next few minutes, I will try to be quick. I am Southern by birth, and so sometimes I speak slowly, but I'm going to try to move quickly today, just so that I can at least kind of get through a lot of information with you. And then just know we have a lot of support available and resources coming your way as well. All right, so I start with this slide. At this point, every time I share with anyone, I want you guys to kind of know really the full mission, the full vision of YouScience, and then we'll hop straight into Snapshot beyond this. So today we are covering Snapshot. That is the 7th and 8th grade version of YouScience. But for us, the heart of what we do is that aptitude-based guidance that you see on the left side. We have aptitude-based guidance for our 7th, 8th graders, as well as for our high school, college, and to adults as well. So we cover basically from 7th grade through adults with our products. Today we'll focus primarily on Snapshot, but the goal of YouScience is to uncover really that raw talent of that young person. That's by doing the aptitude-based guidance, then using that to better align our young people toward the right career and academic programs. We provide that through academic advising with you guys. And then from that, because we're getting students into those right programs, now we know they are gaining the knowledge and skills that they need through our certifications. So that's also a newer part of our product, is that we do have certifications as well. But using all of those pieces toward better aligning our students for talent marketplace as they're getting older, for post-secondary. So maybe it's one or the other, maybe it's a blend of both. We know every student has their own path, and our products and our goal is to really align them toward their personal right path. So that's a little bit of a vision or the full vision behind YouScience. I'm going to keep going just through a few slides to give you a bit of background. Ultimately, we want to stop this widening skills gap in our country. We know we've graduated more and more high school students every single year, doing a really great job throughout our country with that piece. But then there's a disconnect. Employers are saying it's hard to connect with our young people, and then students getting that 4-year degree. And so this number in the middle of your screen, 45%. So that was pre-COVID, but college graduates, 45% of them doing jobs that did not require a 4-year degree. So how is it that we can reach further down with our young people, really uncover the talent so that they're on that better trajectory of going down the path where they will be connected and have a job in the future as well? So from this, as we were developing YouScience, one of the pieces that really became clear is basically how education has evolved, where we use academic measures as a proxy for talent. So we look at that GPA, ACT, SAT score as they get older, and we say, okay, these 10%, they've got a lot of talent because of these scores. But you guys know this, and working with students in the classrooms, every one of us, every student has talent. We need them, we need their talent. Our economy actually needs their talent as well. So that's really when we dive into YouScience, it's really uncovering that raw talent of that young person. Now, since the 1970s, specifically the misalignment of talent on this slide for you guys, since the 1970s, the only thing in the market that's really been available to our middle schools, high schools, colleges, universities, any kind of guidance at all, have been interest or personality surveys. You guys have probably taken a lot of them through the years being educators, where they ask you questions, right? Like, are you good at building things? Do you like to build birdhouses? So when we ask those questions, what we know with our young people is they get back what they've seen in life, what they've most been exposed to. It's very limited to their experiences. We want to move past that. There's a disconnect, right, between what they're interested in, meaning what they've seen, versus what they have the natural abilities to do. So we're going to bring all of those pieces together within YouScience. And by the way, we do not throw interest out of the window. We still include that within our platform. We just know that's very subjective. I'll show you a couple of more numbers behind that piece as well. So on your screen, just briefly, a little bit about the validity behind YouScience. We had to work with multiple partners to pull this together into one platform. The first one that you see on your screen is BAB, which stands for the Ball Aptitude Battery. That is from the Ball Foundation, BALL. So Ball Foundation, they are just outside of Chicago, Illinois. They have researched aptitudes for a little over 50 years now. The science, though, behind their aptitude battery actually came from the original guru of aptitudes. His name was Johnson O'Connor. So their actual science dates back about 100 years, but they've been researching aptitudes for a little over 50. So we worked with them to digitize their pen and paper aptitude battery. By the way, we have sole source over this, only company to have done this at this point. So we've digitized these aptitude exercises. So for students, when they take YouScience, they compare it to playing brain games, yet we're measuring. So they're taking psychometrically valid aptitude exercises. And that's through our partnership with the Ball Foundation. So another great piece for you guys to know about the Ball Foundation and their research is the aptitudes that we measure are very intentional. They remain stable over time once you hit puberty, do not typically change over time. So once you take the YouScience Summit, which is the high school and older version, that's the one that actually stays with that student long term. And we know if they take that at 16, at 26, at 46 years old, their results are going to be about the same when it comes to these aptitudes that we measure. So for your young people, we can give them really solid feedback about just naturally how their brain thinks. And one way to think of YouScience is we actually are not measuring what they know, it's actually measuring how they think. And that's really important. That's that raw talent in the heart of what we're getting to help them make better decisions based on their natural gifts. So one other group that I'll mention from this slide, and by the way, we've got full validity reports. One was published by HumRow that you see on this slide, but I can give you access to all of our, some of our research documents, validity reports as well. But one other piece, so HumRow stands for the Human Resource Research Organization. It's good that it's Saturday. I haven't said that a lot today. I did not tongue-tie me in this presentation today. Hard to say, you probably have not heard of them, but what you would have heard of is what they helped to develop. So HumRow is a group of psychometricians that helped to develop the Department of Labor's ONET. They're based right outside of Washington, D.C. They help to develop how do we track and measure careers in this country, put them into algorithms, keep them up to date on a yearly basis. That's what you see when you look at the Department of Labor's ONET. We had to work with them to pull all of that together within YouScience. All right, so a couple of quick proof points for you guys. Really early on, I actually was living in Atlanta, Georgia at the time when we launched YouScience, and we wanted to launch it in a large metro. And we do have, by the way, a couple of home bases, if you will. So we're based both just outside of Salt Lake City, Utah, as well as Nashville, Tennessee. But when we were launching YouScience, we had just a couple of public high schools in Georgia that started using us and very quickly let their governor's office know that they were interested in what they were doing, basically. And what we did not know at the time is they were about to conduct a third-party study of all platforms in the market that provided career guidance for young people. They threw us in the mix, and they ended up landing on us. So all of the measures that they were looking at for students really pertain to social and emotional well-being of that young person. So things like intent to persist, self-awareness, self-empowerment, career exploration, career decision-making. For that student, bringing about relevance, hope, and purpose. We were the only one that significantly improved in all areas they were measuring for their young people. And I share that because we're now in our 4th year of working with that state, all middle and high schools. And really it is the state of Georgia that prompted us to create Snapshot that we'll talk about today, because they wanted to reach even deeper into 7th and 8th grade for better aligning those students toward what they're selecting for high school. So with that piece, just a couple of quick data points. Some of you guys might love to see data. I actually love sharing these because it gives you something really tangible in numbers to see as well. So this is a large sampling. This is 103,000 students. This was actually broken apart for the governor's office there in Georgia. We've also done this in Colorado, have a lot of schools and districts that use us in Colorado and work with their Department of Education as well. But on your screen, out of these 103,000 students, what you will see is the difference and the big gap, if you will. So if you look at the interest-based line, if we had just continued doing interest-based for these 103,000 students, 80% of their top 50 career recommendations fall in the category that you see on that left side. So arts and entertainment, education, social work, that's life sciences, that's psychology, that's counseling. And that makes sense, right? Like that's what they've seen and been most exposed to. However, 0% of those top 50 career recommendations actually fell into careers that are high demand in our country and high demand in Oregon, where I live, in North Carolina as well. But if you look at the numbers, 54% of these students had high aptitude fit for things like architecture, engineering, IT, logistics. So the question becomes, do they know? We want to make sure that they do see that full potential, even in careers they've never heard of, never considered, maybe no one in their family has ever done before. That really gets to the heart of what we are doing. And then one other quick dive into those numbers, and that is around aptitudes. Aptitudes equal out the playing field when it comes to the career recommendations. So those 103,000 students, now you're seeing the breakdown between gender and race. And the reality is aptitudes equal it out when it comes to those career recommendations. So you see 78, 79, 80% on your screen on those aptitude lines. And then you can see the very different numbers when you look at those interest lines for high demand in our country. So when we talk about, nationally, are talking about creating equality and equity within education, we see this as a really invaluable piece to help you guys in doing that as you're guiding and leading your students toward what they're selecting for you guys from middle school into high school. Okay, so how do we do this? It is like playing brain games, as I mentioned earlier, yet we are measuring. So students, they're very short, by the way. The exercises are anywhere from 5 to 12 minutes long. They are online, so you do not have to completely take class time. If you have worked it out where students can complete things at home, they absolutely can also take YouScience Snapshot from home as well. But the brain games are relatively short. That is intentional. You can log out between any exercise and then log back in as you have time. So spatial visualization is one that we measure in Snapshot. Now, by the way, Snapshot's a little bit shorter for our 7th and 8th graders. It's a little less than an hour to complete. We do not measure as many aptitudes with them. They are young. They're not quite there as far as that full development. We feel very confident, once they take that high school version, that they can keep using that one long term. Some of the aptitudes do harden a little bit earlier, which is why we were able to norm 5 of them for 7th and 8th graders. So they take 5 aptitudes plus an interest survey. So on your screen, spatial visualization is an example of one that is measured in Snapshot. So that is measuring, do you naturally think in 3D or are you more of a 2D thinker? Can you manipulate things in your mind? And by the way, that does not change over time. As much as I wish I would have been really great with spatial visualization, that one is really hard for me. So the way that the exercise works, it's 7 minutes long. It's a piece of paper folded multiple times, hole punched, and you quickly tell the computer where that hole punch will be when the paper is unfolded. So if you're looking at this and you immediately saw that B as in boy is the answer, then you might think very naturally in 3D. I do not see that very easily. By the way, my daughter actually took this back in 9th grade. She's now a senior, but this was her favorite exercise. And she had a good laugh because she thought it was funny that I thought it was hard, because to her, it was somewhat of a no-brainer, right? So for some of us, the exercises are challenging, and it really does depend on how each person's brain works, how they think. It brings out how we are unique. So with that, we do have a set of resources to help you guys kick it off with students. I'm going to briefly show you where those are in just a moment, but it's really important that they know that not every exercise will be easy. For some students, school is a breeze, and they might take YouScience and be like, what is this? This is difficult. That is okay. It might be that what we're asking them to do doesn't quite align with how their brain works. We want them to power through, keep going. They're going to have some really great results that personally match to them. So I'm going to show you now what the results look like for students. But before I do, Beth, let me stop. Beth and Jim, if you guys could help me. And are there questions at this point? Or if anybody wants to unmute and ask a question, that is great with me as well.
Nothing in the chat at the moment. Open for folks to ask aloud.
Okay.
All right.
Very good. So I hope everyone has their coffee, but definitely feel free to write down your questions, put them in chat. Good job, Jim. And definitely ask me. I will roll through some more information and definitely stop again for questions. So I'm happy to hopefully answer everything that needs to be answered today. So on your screen now is the example of what it looks like for students. So I'm going to show you student results first, then I'll show you what you guys as administrators get access to, and most importantly, the academic advising tool that you guys get access to that really is incredible and can change the game when it comes to conversations, not only with your students, but also with your local business and industry partners as well. So on your screen, for students, it is very positive. So these are results for Snapshot. I'm going to click through and just show you briefly what it looks like. And by the way, for your teachers, your counselors, anyone implementing YouScience, they do not need to be an expert. We have it written so that there is no interpretation required. They can even show a 5-minute walkthrough video, pause it, have students pull it up in their results. So we keep it just very simple for everyone to use and implement. You do not have to be an expert in aptitudes. We have it really nicely laid out for you guys. So Alex, our pretend student, he crushed it. What you're seeing at the top are his strongest 2 aptitudes. So numerical reasoning, sequential reasoning. He does not need to know what that means. What he does need to do, though, is check them out on the pie chart. So what we do is each aptitude is represented here when I click on any of these colors. And what it will give this student is just positive feedback about how they think in each aptitude. We are all a blend of them. So we keep it pretty simple. We go a little bit more in depth once they hit the high school version. Before our middle school version, we just want to give them a few bullet points about here is how you think, here's how to use it. So in my example earlier with spatial visualization, this student is a 3D visualizer like my daughter, can easily manipulate things in their mind. And you'll see it even says, you know, you might find success in things like biology, physics, design, anywhere you can mentally picture how systems work. So we want to give them some really solid feedback about just their natural strengths and aptitudes. And then we also give them feedback about their interest. Now we know this is subjective, as I showed you guys earlier with those interesting numbers, but we still want to ask them. And so what you're seeing for this student are his top 3 interests at this point. So he's investigative. He wants to really research if possible. Artistic, that does not mean drawing. It actually means being creative, wants to be creative and original. And then realistic actually is, I want to work with my hands. I want to do physical activity. So the interest piece, because we know that changes and changes easily over time, changes weekly with our young people. My 8th grade son, I think every week he has a different professional sport he thinks he's going to play. But what we do know is the interest piece, you can absolutely retake it every year. And that is a part of the program. We really recommend doing it yearly once they hit high school. But you could do that between, if they take YouScience 7th grade year, then in 8th grade year, we could reset those interest surveys. That takes about 10 minutes to retake that piece. So about every year we want them to retake it. They could just take YouScience Snapshot one time, either in 7th or 8th grade, and then wait to take interest again once they hit that high school version.
Amy, there's a quick question in the chat. If you can just
Great.
talk real quick about the difference between a high school student taking the test versus middle school student, what would it look like?
Yes, good question. So they still are like playing brain games. It's just when they hit the high school version, they're actually going to take 9 aptitudes plus interest plus personality. So we do include personality once they hit high school as well. So we recommend, maybe skipping a year between taking, even though I think in the state of Georgia, they do take an 8th grade year and then 9th grade year for high school version. But that high school version, it's still like playing brain games a little bit longer. So we always recommend splitting it up because it takes between 70 to 90 minutes to complete. Splitting it up over multiple days is ideal. And then that version is the one that's very in-depth. So it not only shows them how they match personally to all careers in our country, but it also shows them or gives them language to describe themselves, as well as exploration of colleges. And then that version also will personally match them to both local and national opportunity. So we are rolling out a talent marketplace that will be in that high school and older version. By the way, we've got colleges, universities, adult programs that use that version as well. So we are about to launch a talent marketplace. And what that means for that high school student, they get to keep YouScience once they take the high school version for 10 years. And the talent marketplace will start loading in the next month. So they will be personally matched, see local jobs, and internships, apprenticeships, full-time, part-time jobs as well. So that piece is a long-term, more in-depth, if you will. That's a great question. Thank you for asking that too. Any other questions at this point? And then I'll show you what careers look like for the middle school student.
Yes, Amy, there's another one in the chat. Yeah, the question is it accurate that the best comparison of results would take place if there was a sufficient gap between the middle and high school tests and when sufficient exploration is provided based on aptitude and interest?
Yes and no. I think, so schools have found that you can do 8th grade, 9th grade year. It's more a preference and really programming. It's not going to change like the results, if you will, dramatically if you did it 2 years in a row, like 8th grade for snapshot, 9th grade for high school. What we do here though is it's kind of nice to give a year in between if you can. So it kind of gives them a break from feeling like, wait, I just did this last year, because they will retake some of these aptitudes. So we still have them as completely separate products. Eventually, at some point, we do hope to kind of re-norm that piece. For now, they're normed separately. I hope that helped answer that question. And please, if not, chat that back in and we can come back to that again too. All right, any other questions at this point? And then I'll show you guys what careers look like for the student. Okay, great. So what I clicked on for this young person is his careers tab. We keep the recommendations separate at this level. So that is another difference, by the way. Once they hit the high school version, we show both aptitude and interest based on every career in the country personally matched to the student. And we also provide an overall fit, meaning blending aptitudes and interest. But for the 7th, 8th grader, we want to keep those separate and we want them to compare. You'll see some drastic differences in many of them when it comes to what they're naturally good at versus what they have the interest in doing. And that's the goal, is to have those conversations. So on your screen right now for the student, these are his aptitude fits. Now, these are the 16 career clusters in our country. So every student is shown how they match to the 16 career clusters in our country. The strongest fits are at the top with agricultural and natural resources for the student, health sciences, finance. And then the smaller they get, the less of a fit it is for him based on just naturally how his brain works. So comparing the two, so he can see the aptitudes and then he can see his interest. Now he's a bit of a unicorn, by the way, because if you notice, he also has high interest in agriculture and natural resources. That does not happen often, by the way, with students. Typically, you'll see a lot of vast differences. But with this student, that would be a great place to start with him. Like, wow, you have both aptitude and interest, let's talk about your options for high school in our area, or with our high school next. But when they click on any of these, they get full exploration of every career within agriculture and natural resources. So they can come in, explore them, save them, create their own little saved careers section. But each career itself is explorable. So I'm just going to click one quickly so that you can see what is included. So what they get, first they get other titles it's known by. So we have a little over 500 careers in the system, but it actually breaks down to over 10,000 titles. So everything in our country is in here. Now, by the way, I mentioned earlier about my son wanting to be a professional athlete. Don't know if you guys have any students like that, but just know professional athlete is not in our system. We cannot measure that. So that is not, sometimes students might need to hear that up front for some folks that are thinking that's the route they want to go. Just let them know that's not in the system, but let's look at these other options for them, plan B, if you will. So we give them within every career, here's a day in the life, the core tasks of what you would typically do. Here are the projections. So they can look at the national projections, starting average top salary, and then we want them to look at it by state. So is it projected to grow in Oregon? What do those projections look like? 6.2% is probably pretty good for this career since the national average is 3.3. So absolutely there'll be some growth there in Oregon. Starting average top salary is also listed there. And then underneath that, we want to give them an idea of the things they would need to accomplish in order to get that first job. So here are the educational investment pieces, whether it's on-the-job training, licensing, certification, that also will be listed here. When they hit the high school version, we do include the actual college majors, whether it's for an associate's degree or beyond, those also are listed there for them. And then industry, where do you typically work if you pursue this job? We give them kind of a good idea broadly with that piece. And then at the very bottom of every career, we do list where we pull all of this information from. So multiple sources into one place for that young person. So that is a very quick tour of their careers. And as I mentioned, we want them to compare those high aptitude to high interest, explore all careers, and start having those discussions. So for you guys, I'm going to swipe over. So what you're seeing now is the homepage of our administrative portal. Every school gets an administrative portal. It is up to you guys who all get access. So the district level can have access, teachers, principals, counselors, you guys, it's unlimited. So whoever needs access, this is where you would see the students' results, just as I showed you a moment ago. You also can see how far they progressed. It's also this portal where you would invite them to take YouScience. So let me just show you quickly. I'm not going to go too in depth with this piece, but we will do some more training behind using the administrative portal. So if you're working with multiple schools, by the way, let's say you are at the district level, you've got multiple middle schools working in this project, you will be able to toggle between those middle schools. I only have one pretend middle school in my system, so I'm going to click on that one. And then from this is actually where the school or the teacher can bulk invite students. So you can send email invitations to students to take YouScience, or you can download activation codes and hand out activation codes. But the school, the teacher, the counselor, whoever the lead is for us at the school, they typically are the ones that create folders within your administrative portal, name them. We find most schools will use graduation class year just to split up students, and then for easily sharing them even with their high schools or even archiving them later. So you create the folders, name them what you want to name them, assign the students to the folders, and then from the folders, that is where they will populate so that you can see how far they have progressed. And then when you click on any of their names, you can actually click the impersonate button to actually see the results, just as I walked through with you a moment ago. So you do get access to each individual student's results. If you have to nudge them along, you also can see how much they've completed. So for this student, actually only not too long left. They've completed 2 out of the 6. So you can nudge them to complete. And then the biggest question we ever get. So in the bottom right corner, The most important thing, if you don't walk away with anything about YouScience today, just know that we can help you anytime. Our support, our chat button is in that bottom right corner of all of our screens. So let's say you're in the middle of exercises, you lose internet access, or you have a fire drill and they're in the middle of taking YouScience. When you come back in, hop on our chat feature. We can reset exercises, but that is basically the fastest response. We can help you very quickly. But our number one chat through the years, you guys probably will laugh at this because it's actually an issue that I have, which is remembering my password. So the number one chat has always been about students forgetting their passwords. So now you can actually come into Horace's account, click the button, reset his password if he's forgotten. Now, if it's a bunch of students, you can have them chat with us. We're happy to still do that as well, but you do have that control too. So that was a quick tour of the administrative portal. I'm going to keep going backwards just for a second because I want to show you just a couple of more pieces that are really important. One is our knowledge base. So we can give you access now to this, but you also have access directly from your portal. You will want to come here and view our resources. So we have videos, we have other webinars and trainings. You're more than welcome to join any of them. But then when you click on career guidance, you can see all of the resources we have. And so you would scroll down to your type of school, so for our middle schools, and then explore all of these tabs. So we want you to use our kickoff materials. You can edit them, make them your own. We have a great PowerPoint presentation, share part of that with your students. There are introduction videos, walkthrough videos. There are lesson plans, worksheets. So basically, we do not want you to have to create anything. You can come and download. We think we've developed basically anything you could possibly need. You can download, edit, and make your own. So that is there for you. Let me go back another screen. Oops, hold on. I think that is blocking my way back. Hold on, let me see if I can get back there. Maybe here, there we go. So the last piece I want to share with you guys, and then I will be quiet and answer more questions, is insights. So insights are your academic advising tools. You would come in, click on your middle school. Once again, if you have multiple middle schools, you'll have multiple options there. But the cluster report is the academic advising tool used by middle schools. So this report will show you what are your overall top 3 career cluster recommendations for each of your students. So I'm going to show you how it works. When you generate this report, you can come in anytime, by the way, and do this. So superintendent, principal, teacher, they can all create it in the same day at the same time, and you're going to be able to recreate it at any point that you wish from this year through the end of next year. So when you come into the report itself, we have all 16 of the career clusters as an option, but then you also can come in and maybe there are a few career clusters that you want to see how your students match. So I'm just going to click on a few at the top and show you how it works. So I clicked on the first few, I applied it. You will see overall numbers of your students. And then underneath that, you will see the breakdown. So how many have high aptitude fit for these area of careers, how many have high interest, and then an even really cooler number, I think, is being able to see the aptitude versus interest ratio. So if you look at this one with agriculture and natural resources, 1.5 times more students have aptitude versus what show interest. The larger that number, the more that we call that an exposure or an awareness gap. And that actually is from we work with chambers. We also work with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce as well. They call it an awareness gap, and that is where the students have the natural gifts but haven't heard about the careers. So this is a really great section in the report to highlight that yes, your students have the aptitudes for specific career clusters. You can download this section. There's an export button. in the top right corner. Download this and share it with your local business and industry. If you're working on partnerships, maybe building out some middle school labs, middle school programs, and even into your high schools to say, yes, we've got the talent. You need to partner with us. Let's not just have a pizza party. Let's work on, working on these specific internship opportunities or pathways for students. So this section, when you download it, it is de-identified so that you can share it with others outside of the school. It will not have student information other than numbers for you. However, underneath that, let's say you need to find those 3 students with a high aptitude fit for agriculture and natural resources. You can do that in the next section. So this section is also downloadable, and then you can sort it, but you will see here are the top 3 aptitudes. By the way, I only have 3 students in this, so a small sampling for you guys, but just to give an idea. So you see the top 3 by aptitude, by interest fit for each of these students. Then when you export it, you can sort it by race and gender, and you can sort it by, okay, let's find those students with that high aptitude fit for agriculture and natural resources. So that is a very quick tour of the report. It's very powerful, and it's giving you that information of, yes, our students have talent, and let's focus in on that talent as we're making decisions about their future and even guiding them toward that best fit as well. So now I will be quiet. Let me answer questions.
Looking for anything in the chat. And anybody want to wave or speak aloud would be great. Really thorough, Amy. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Let me stop sharing then and hand it back to Jim. Thank you for your time. I'm going to hop off. And as I said, I think Jim and Beth will cover. We'll be doing some other specific implementation trainings that'll help teachers as well. Yeah.
Amy, thank you so much. And so you all know she's 3 hours ahead, so well into her day. We thank you so much for giving us a big chunk of your Saturday.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. I love